Are you ready for one of our favorite guest speakers, a regular at Identify Impact, a friend of Elevate Life? He's been on our board. I met him when he was speaking at an event. It was a very large event, a couple thousand people in the audience. And when he spoke about the movement he started, I said, I have to know that person. And I went right up to him like, hi, who are you? I'm Dr. Andrea. I run a leadership organization. I need to know you. I need you on my team. Because I wasn't afraid to ask and get to know somebody and take a risk. And here he is today, 4 or 5 years later, I don't know, I lost track. But I want you all to stand to your feet and give a big warm welcome to Denis
Estimon. Alright, is my mic on? Is it on?
Yes.
Is it on really though? Alright, if you can hear me, clap twice. Alright, for the people who don't have rhythm, you know what I'm saying? Twice. Ready? Alright, on 3, clap twice. 1. See, you got a rhythm, man. On 3. Clap twice. 2 times. 3 times. Come on, y'all have no energy. Come on, look to the person next to you and tell them, I'm glad I'm sitting next to you today. Now look to the other person next to you and tell them, I totally just lied to that person. All right, now look back at the other person and tell them, you got to move, baby. You got to move. Okay, now to that person that looked at you, ask them this. Where am I going? Ask them, where am I going? Ask them, where am I going? Look to the other person next to you, tell them you got to move. Look to the person behind you and ask them, where are you going?
Where are you going?
All right, before we start, can we just give a hand clap for my friend David here? Awesome. So, like Dr. Andre said, my name is Denis Estimon. I've been here for a while now. I keep coming back, so I like this place. I've been here a couple of years, and every year I talk about something different. I guess that's what speakers do, right? So, yeah, I come back every single year, and really, my hope for this year is that this session together won't just be another talk or another presentation, but see it as a heart-to-heart. I have some music in the background, just, so there's some energy in the room. But I told you to turn to your neighbor and ask them, where am I going, right? And I really believe that that's a question that we're all asking in life, and that's, I heard it said this way, the 2 greatest questions that you can answer is 1, where am I going? And 2, who will go with me? Right? 1, where am I going? 2, who will go with me? If you ever get those 2 questions in the wrong order, you are in trouble, right? So what's the first question? Where am I going? What's the second question? And if you ever get those 2 questions in the wrong order, you're in trouble. What do I mean by that? Because first, you want to have an idea of where you're going. You want to have an idea of not just the things that you want to do, but you want to have an idea of the person you want to become. That's right. And see, the thing is, in this journey called life, you will meet a whole bunch of people. You will find yourself in pretty stupid situations, I'm not going to lie to you. And you're going to make some mistakes, but really, before I even start, I want to encourage you, make your mistakes. But just don't let your mistakes make you. So 1, where am I going? 2, who will go with me? I believe that every single person in here I really do believe that you wanna do something significant. You wanna see something significant take place in your life. I think that's why you're here. Maybe your parents dragged you here and were like, yeah, you're coming. But to some degree, I believe we all want to do something significant. We all want to do something purposeful. If anybody knows TikTok, what's one of the most trending hashtags on TikTok since day one? And it's not for you, but it's make me famous. And I really believe when people say make me famous, what they're actually saying is actually make me significant. And here's what I believe. I believe that your significance doesn't come from what you're doing. It doesn't come from other people's opinion of you. I believe that your significance actually comes from who you are. So your life is not based on the things that you do. I believe that your life is based on who you are. Wait, Dennis, that doesn't make sense. All right. I believe the word purpose, right? And this is just my intro. I believe the word purpose is not the thing that you do. In our culture, we're told, hey, I want to find my purpose. I need to find my purpose. We act like purpose is like a game of hide and go seek, and it's something that we have to go out searching for. But in reality, I don't believe purpose is what you do. I believe purpose is actually the reason in which something is created. So purpose is not what you strive for. Purpose is actually where you start from. So do not let your life be defined by what you do, but let what you do be dictated by who you are. Are we following me? Yeah. Look to the person next to you and tell them, you got to move, baby. So here's what I believe. I believe that every single one of us, we want to see something significant take place. We want to see a movement happen. So I want to speak to you from the subject. Originally we're going to call it from move to movement. But you know what? We're going to call it how to become a movement. All right? We're going to call it how to become a movement. And really, let me quickly define what a movement is. I don't believe a movement is just an organization or a nonprofit or a corporation. I believe that a movement is not an organization. I believe a movement is actually an organism. And an organism has different cells that actually that it takes to come together to sustain life. And so, you know, that question that we ask is like, where am I going to? Who will go with me? I believe that a lot of us, we spend most of our life kind of going nowhere but having a good time. I can tell you a funny story of, you know, a couple years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I was in high school and my friends invited me to come out. And I'm like, all right, bet, let's go, you know. Put on my skinny jeans and I felt good and everything. And now here's the only problem. They were picking me up at 11 o'clock, you know. And my bedtime was like 10 o'clock. That's the bedtime that I set. Like, my mom expected me to be in the house by like 7:30. Like, we have this rule, like, hey, the street lights come on, your buddy's in the house. Like, there's no if, ands, or but about that. But anyways, I wanted to go out. I knew there were going to be some people there. I knew there were going to be some girls there, a specific girl that I liked at the time. And so my friends picked me up, and they were going to take me to a party. I'm like, all right, let's go, you know. Get out of here. And I remember they picked me up, and they drive me to the place, and we got there, and the cops were there. I'm like, ah, dang, all right, next place. We're on Instagram trying to find the next place to go to, and what's the move, you know? Okay, we find the next place, and now we drive to the next place. And guess what? By the time we showed up, what happened? The cops were there. I'm like, these people are too good. They must have got a raise or something, because I don't understand this. So by this time now, it's 12:30, right? It's 12:30 in the morning. My mom thinks I'm asleep, but I'm not asleep. You know, I'm just getting up. So now we drive to the next place. Guess what happens? The cops were there. And my friend got it. That's prophetic. So I'm like, all right, just take me home. Take me home. I ain't got time for this. Just take me home. The one time I try to go out, I try to do something, take me home. So now, they're like, no, we're not taking you home. I'm like, oh my goodness. You know, now it's like 12:30, 1 a.m. I'm like, oh, okay. So now, okay, these I'm not going to call them that. these friends that I was with, they decided, okay, we're not gonna go home, but we're just gonna drive around all around the city. And they're zooming. You got one guy with the Honda Civic. You got one guy with the Mustang, like acting like they're in like Need for Speed or something. And so they're going down, the street, and somehow, some way, I can't even explain it to you. These two idiots run into each other. Yes, two cars of people. They run into each other. Tell me how? I have no idea. So now it's about 2 a.m. and we're standing on the side of the road. Yeah. And both cars total, can't move. And I'm like, all right. If I wait here, the cops are going to show up. And if they take me to my mom, that's not going to be a good scene. So I'm like, pop the trunk. So they pop the trunk, and I'm like, I'm out of here. So then I walk 2 miles home, right? And why do I tell you that story? I believe like this story is a lot of what our relationships look like. I believe that a lot of us, we're in relationships and we're with people, essentially we're having a good time, but we're actually not going anywhere. We're having a lot of fun in the process, but if you ask yourself, where is this really going? You'll probably say, I don't really know. So what did I do? I picked up my bags and I took my butt home. Walked about 2.5 miles. I lost some calories. I didn't do that again, as you can see. But I walked 2.5 miles home because I realized that these people, what they were doing, I had no business doing what they were doing. And for where I wanted to go, they were actually holding me back and they weren't pushing me forward. What's that question again? First, you want to decide where you want to go. Second, you want to decide who will go with you. And then what happens is you begin to evaluate your friend group and you ask yourself, is this person pushing me forward to who I want to be, or are they actually pulling me back to who I want to be? So this picture is this story is a picture of our relationships. And if our relationships are a vehicle, you have to ask, where is that vehicle taking you? Whether, some of you guys are getting into the romantic relationships, whatever you call that. But when you get into relationships with people, that's the thing that you have to ask. So why did I spend so much time talking? And I didn't even really start yet, by the way. Just that, I'm Haitian, I preach, so like, I can go forever. But why did I talk about that? Because anytime you want to do something significant in life, there are going to be obstacles. There's going to be the obstacles that you can see. There's going to be the obstacles that you can't see. There's going to be people that are going to push you forward. There's going to be people that's going to pull you back. So the topic of tonight, when I talk about how to become a movement, I don't want to just talk about how to start a movement. I don't want to just talk about how to start a club. I don't want to talk about how to just start an organization. I want to talk about how to become a movement. So now a little bit backstory. You can pick it up a little bit, place it a little upbeat, Now a little bit backstory on me. My family came from Haiti at the age of 6. We came from Haiti to the United States. And when we came from Haiti, you know that when you come to Boca Raton and nobody looks like you, yeah, some of y'all know what I'm talking about, Straight from Boca Raton. Yeah, it was rough. From Haiti, it's pretty difficult because when nobody looks like you, when nobody talks like you, when nobody dresses like you, it's clear that you're different. So most of my life, my biggest insecurity was that I was different. And now today, I do whatever I can to be different. Okay, you wear baggy jeans, I wear skinny jeans, whatever, And isn't it funny how sometimes our greatest ability can sometimes seem like our greatest disability, right? If anybody knows anything about I sweat a lot, she knows. If anybody knows anything about my story, I'm going to give you the short version. So my family, we came from Haiti to the United States. I experienced the loneliness. I experienced isolation. I experienced what it felt like to not have anybody to sit with at lunch. I experienced what it felt like to be called names because of my skin color. I experienced what it felt like to essentially walk into a room, and if the lights went off, they'd be like, where did Dennis go? You guys, y'all laughing, you guys are crazy. And I experienced all of these challenges. But later on in my life, I realized that what I thought made me different was actually the thing that made me special. It was actually the thing that made me unique. So long story short, in high school, I created something called We Dine Together. And essentially, We Dine Together was a space. It was a community of people where no matter what you look like, no matter what your skin color was, you can come into this room and you can feel welcomed. And what happened is, in this little room in Boca Raton High School, a community started to form. And one of the things that we realized is when we started pulling people from different social groups, we realized that if you walked into a cafeteria, you can literally see a racial divide. Like, I'm talking about like straight up like colors. Like, you see black people on this side, and you see white people on this side. I'm like, what is going on? I know most of my friend groups are, is pretty diverse, but when I go into the cafeteria, I'm like, yo, like, why are all the black people on this side? Why are the white people, why are all the Latin people on this side? And I realized there was something going on. And not only even that, when we started pulling from different social groups, I realized there's a whole bunch of people who don't even really have a social group. There are a whole bunch of people that every single day they eat lunch by themselves. There are a whole bunch of people that every single day they find themselves in a bathroom because they don't have a community. So what did we do? We created a space where we said, hey, we got food, slide through, we got pizza. If you need some lunch, come and hang. And at that time, I wasn't a good speaker or anything like that, and you probably think you're not a good speaker now. Okay, cool. But all we did is we just brought people together. And we brought food because we believe that when you break bread, you actually break barriers. When you find things that can bring you together, it can actually help strengthen you instead of finding things that's going to pull you apart. And let me tell you what happened in that room. Community was formed. Relationships were built. People who were struggling their whole life with certain things, they felt like now they had a community that they could actually be a part of. And long story short, CBS picked up the story, ABC picked up the story, People Magazine picked up the story, and a whole bunch of other news stations I don't even really watch picked up the story. And now here's what happened. The kid that came to the country and he couldn't speak the language now became the kid that was speaking all across the United States. The kid that came to the country that nobody even wanted to talk to was the kid that was getting brand sponsorships from Fortune 500 companies. The kid that when he walked into a room, he was scared about what other people would think of him was the kid that now can walk into a room and inspire every single person in it. And why do I say that? I don't say that to impress you, but I say that to impress upon you of what's possible once you realize that your story, the things that you've been through, the things that you are going through, they actually don't have to hinder you from all that you can become. Are you following me? Look to the person next to you and tell them, you got to move, baby. So I tell you in hopes that you can see that there is a lot that you can become. Not just do, but become. So when I say, okay, we're talking about how to become a movement, I believe you, yes you, say me, I believe you, the you that, in your brokenness, in your happiness, in your joy, in your distress, you, whether you can speak English or you don't, whether you have good grammar or you don't, whether you don't know how to tie your shoes, I don't care, you, I believe that you can become a movement. A movement is something that leaves impact. A movement is something that makes a difference. A movement is something that once it comes, it actually makes lives better. So now the question is that it's okay, how can I become a movement? That's the question, right? How can I become a movement? Well, before you can become a movement, the first thing you have to do is move. That's the first thing you have to do, is you have to move. I remember a couple years ago, I was on a plane and I just came back from the speaking engagement. I was speaking in Oregon, and there was probably like 2,000 kids in the audience. First of all, I was late to the speaking engagement. Like, that's a whole other story for later. But I remember the first time, that was the first time that I ever felt significant, right? And let me tell you why. And this is after like, I was on a Super Bowl commercial. This is after I did some brand sponsorships. This is after I got a Black History Award. Like, after this speaking engagement was the first time I ever felt significant. I literally spoke in over 20 states before that moment. But in everything that I've done, that was the first time I felt significant. And I remember that day I got on the stage and I spoke a message called "I was made for this." Because it was the first time that I realized every single thing that I've been through up until that point, all of the times in my life where I almost didn't make it, you know? Like, for me to be here today is literally an absolute miracle. I can tell you of a time, one time we were picking up my dad from the airport, and when we were picking up my dad from the airport, some men came and they snatched us out of our cars. And I never really shared these stories before publicly, but I think it's important that you understand this. I remember we were driving, or we were picking my dad up from the airport. He was coming back from America, and we were in Haiti at the time. And these men, they snatched us from our car, and they basically said, give us everything you have in this suitcase, and we're taking the boy. And my dad's like, no, you're not taking it. And they're arguing. They're like, give us everything in the suitcase, and we're taking the boy. My dad's like, no, you have to shoot me first. And I'm sorry, this is graphic, but it's true. And I can remember that it's probably 5 years old at the time, 5 or 6, around 5, yeah. I can remember that 3 men, a gun to me, a gun to my mom, a gun to my dad. And my dad just argued. My dad argued with me, like, no, you can take everything else, you can take the car, but if you take them, you're gonna have to take me. You know, long story short, they didn't end up taking me. I'm here obviously, but they took everything, in the vehicle. But that was the moment when I realized, it's like, maybe my life, as twisted as this sounds, maybe my life is more valuable than I thought. Has anybody in this room, and I told you this is not a regular presentation, so like, and I promise I'm getting somewhere. Just real quick, you don't have to answer this, but just think to yourself, has there ever been a time in your life when you just almost didn't make it? A time when you, like, some of you guys know what I'm talking about, other people are like, this is kind of weird. But has anybody ever had that moment happen to them? Or maybe you're in here today and you've had something happen in your life and you still probably haven't dealt with it. And you think that thing that happened in your life actually counts you out. You think those difficulties that you face actually doesn't qualify you to do amazing things. You think that you're almost too broken, so maybe you will never find a good relationship. And that's the thing, it's like these things will happen to us, and then we'll take it on ourselves. But the reason why I want to talk about this topic of how to become a movement is because I believe every single person in this room has a story. I don't know your story, but the thing I want to tell you is your story is literally your story, a story. But now, I just want to say the things that has happened to you doesn't have to keep you where you are. So here's the first thing I want you to remember. If you are going to become a movement, if you are going to become I call them movers, then you have to realize that you don't have to, one, stay where you started. Say that. I don't have to stay where I started. That's the best term I know. And you don't have to stop where you are. And if you're going to see a movement take place in your life, there's no better time than now, and there's no better person than you. And it's really when I believe that, and I did a lot of things, it's when I believe that concept, that I can really make a difference. That's when my life really actually started to change. This is like this is when I really felt significant. Is when I realized the true impact that I can have. So if you're going to be a mover, if you're going to start a movement, what do you need to do? Now, here's the practical thing. The first thing is, say, confront conflict. Everybody say it with me, confront conflict. So the thing that's true for every single story is that you will all have conflict. Name one movie that doesn't have a conflict in it. And if it doesn't have a conflict, it's probably a pretty bad movie. Yeah. And like, I fall asleep in movies anyways, but like, so could it be, just follow me here for a second, could it be the thing that you've been through, the thing that has happened to you, is actually a story that's being built? It's actually a story that's being written, and you're not the author of that story. I don't really believe that. But could it be that the stuff that you've been through is actually building your story? But the thing is, most of us, we spend life running away from the conflict and we never confront it. Maybe you have some insecurities and your whole life you just spent trying to run away from it instead of confronting it. Maybe you have some challenges or some difficulties or some things that you're scared of, but you never confronted it. I'm going to be real. I used to be scared of dogs, okay? I'm talking about like small dogs. I used to be terrified. Like, yeah, you guys are looking at me. Like, I used to be terrified, yeah. But I confronted it. Now I love dogs and they love me. But here's the thing. If you never confront conflict, then you will never conquer conflict. The speaker before me, she asked a question. I believe she asked, what was the question? It was like, what are some things that you need to confront? Yeah, exactly that. If you never confront conflict, you'll never conquer conflict. So the second thing that you need to do to become a mover is you need to cultivate connections. You need to cultivate connections with people, and you need to cultivate connections for people. So one of the things that I talked about a couple minutes ago was about who's going with you. If you know that in your life you're confronting conflict and you have to cultivate connections with people, if you have to find your tribe, your community, your homeboys, your squad, your crew, whatever you want to call them, you have to find opportunities to actually cultivate connections. So when we started our We Dine Together Club, the thing that we were doing with people is we were cultivating connections. And I think sometimes in life, the greatest things that you can do is get connected to some people that no matter what season you find yourself in, they're not only there with you, but they're actually there for you. So how do you cultivate connections? You cultivate connections by first being honest with yourself, and two, by being honest with other people. One of the things that surprised me so much when I speak or when I do seminars or conferences is there can be people in a room that are dealing with, there can be 100 people in the room that are dealing with the same exact thing, but nobody will say nothing. I'm talking nada, zip, nothing. And you don't know that only if you just opened yourself up a little bit. If you just open yourself up a little bit, you'll find some people that are dealing with that same exact thing. But again, you spend most of your life just running away from it instead of charging towards it. So first thing, what do you need to do? Confront conflict. The second thing you need to do is cultivate connections. And the result of that is you'll begin to create a community. Right? So what's the first one? Confront conflict. Second one? Who's paying attention?
Cultivate connections.
Cultivate connections. The third one, the result of that is you begin to create a community. One of the best things that happens at Camp Identify every single year is that a community is formed. And one of the things I think that's interesting in our time today is we have followers. We have people who we're friends with on TikTok and Instagram. But like, who really knows you? I'm talking about like, who knows you? Like your ratchet self. I'm talking about like your snake self. Who knows you? You know? Who really knows you? And see, the best thing is, I think, once you confront conflict, once you cultivate connections, you can create a community. You can create a community of people who, they sat where you sat, they walked where you walked, they understand, some of the things that you've been through. And that's the thing, it's like, if you're honest, I know there's some people in there today, and I know some of these moments are silent, but some of your heads are turning, I know it. But if you're honest with yourself, you wanna be in a community. But sometimes you think like you're the only one, dealing with something, or you're the only one that is going through something. But in reality, like I said before, there's other people that's doing the same, that's going through the same thing. Or here's another version of that. Maybe you're in here today and you're past all that, and you say, I just want to make a difference. Okay, so I want you to think about your story. I want you to think about some of the conflict that you have to confront. And whatever that story was, whatever that struggle was, whatever that pain was, I guarantee you, and these are for the people who overcome it, right? I guarantee you there's some other people on the other side of the room or in another season of life that they probably are where you were. Are we following me? You guys get what I'm saying? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Right? So, yeah, maybe you do have it figured out. Let's just say. But you have to have the understanding that there's some people who hasn't, or who haven't gotten it figured out. So now it's your role, it's your responsibility, if you really want to make a difference, to find those people, cultivate connections with them. And then you begin to create a community. How do you create a community? You have to create a space for that. You create a space. For us, it was a high school classroom. We created a space where people can come in, whoever they were, whatever they look like. But you know what happened from that space? From a hot high school classroom with a whole bunch of musky people? You know what happened? I think the nation was changed, to be honest with you. I personally think before We Dine Together started, you didn't hear a lot about things like, hey, sit with us, come sit with me. Like, you didn't really hear that. And so the connections that were cultivated in one high school classroom, think about the power of that. In one high school classroom, exploded throughout the world. Because people who are going through or who have dealt with the same thing decided to create a space. So I want you to think to yourself, and even as you get with your squad today, what is that space that you can create? You know? Maybe it is you get together with your friends once a week, or maybe it is in the fall starting a TLT movement at your school. But what happens is when you create a space where people can confront their conflict, cultivate connections, you create a community. And now what happens is when you have a community of people who have dealt with stuff, when you have a community of people who have had some trouble in life, what happens is when you get those people in a room, you get those people talking, and you're going to realize that their story is a lot like yours. I remember about 2 years ago, I was doing like a leadership seminar for one of my friends, and he got a house, and he had like all of his team, and I came and I did a session with them, and I stayed after a session. After that session, everybody, they did something called story sharing. And when they did story sharing, everybody went for about 2-3 minutes, and they just told their whole story. I'm like, I'll do this, I'll participate. And everybody just went around, and first girl went, my mom was divorced, my dad wasn't around. Another person went, my mom wasn't around, my dad was. Another person went, I struggled with anxiety, I struggled with depression. What happened is by the end of this meeting, the whole crowd, the whole group is crying. Because we realized that we spent about a week with each other. We didn't open up to each other, but we all had a similar story. So what happens is when a community is formed, people begin to communicate a story. And I really think that what happened with the movement that I started, We Dine Together, started because of that concept. Is a person willing to confront their conflict, find other people, cultivate connections with them, create a space that then creates a community. And what happened is the nation started to communicate that story. And you can go do some research. You'll see some posts on Facebook, on YouTube, with over 600,000 people in comments telling stories about how they needed that when they were in school. Sharing stories about how they were the person that sat by themselves. Sharing their stories of how they were the person that moved from another country or another state. So I tell you that to tell you that if that can happen in a high school classroom, I believe that movement can happen here. I believe that movement can happen in the fall when some of you start your TLT movement at your school. But out of all of that, why do I tell you that? I tell you that because I believe that the greatest movement that will ever take place is not the movement that happens on TV. It's not the movement that they show on CNN. It's not the movement that changes the White House. But it's the movement that changes your house. And like the lady before me was saying, you can't change the world around you until you deal with some of the things within you. And the greatest movement that will ever take place is not the movement out here. The greatest movement that will ever take place is the movement in here. So, I don't know about you, but I believe some of you guys, you have some moves to make. And whatever season you find yourself in, or whatever season of life you ever find yourself in, whether you have to move out, and you're a senior and you have to move out, whether you're looking for a job, or whether 10 years from now you are in a job and you want to move up, or whether you're in a place and you feel stuck and you want to move forward, or whether you're dealing with some things and you're dealing with history so you can actually never move forward to destiny and you want to move on, my simple encouragement to you is just move. Just move. Just move. Because from one single move, you can see a movement take place in your life. Yeah. You know, growing up, in the United States, I couldn't speak the language very well, and I sucked at writing, and but now I'm writing a book. I didn't speak the language, but now I'm speaking all across the country. I had no idea how to manage money, and now I'm running a business. There are so many things that can happen if you're just willing to move. You don't have to stay where you started. You don't have to stop where you are. There's no better time than now. And there's no better person than you. Let's move. That's it for me.
Do you have time for a few questions?
Yep.
So, come on, he said a lot of things. There's probably people curious, want to know a little bit deeper about anything he said. Who's got some questions for him?
Any questions? Any questions?
I just want your hear me?
Yep.
My name is Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Just in life, right now I'm in a decision what I want to do with myself in life. I feel purpose, but I don't know which direction. And for a long time I thought it was military. Then I had an incident with my grandma. She caught COVID and she got really sick. Doctors was telling us, like, go say her goodbyes because her lungs are going. And she ended up beating it. So now she's back at home walking, making food, and that's great to see. So, but now I'm stuck at like a road. I don't know where to go with myself. So I just want to know what's your opinion on that? What should I do?
So your question is it's a question of direction.
Direction. That's what I'm looking for.
That's not an easy situation, but thank God that your grandma beat COVID.
Right.
Come on, that's absolutely incredible. But that's not an easy question. And I think for all of us, we're all going to have a time in our life when we kind of have two roads that we kind of have to choose. But my biggest encouragement to you, I'm not going to tell you what choice to make, but my biggest encouragement to you is if you're going to move, you're going to realize that the greatest thing that happens in your life won't just be in result of what you did. So whether you choose to be a doctor or a lawyer, military, or a math tutor, the idea of this talk is it doesn't really matter what you do, guys, to be honest with you. And the reason why I say is because I know a lot of you guys are probably in here and you're stressed out. And you're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to study? I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. But what does matter? Right? What does matter? And I'm not telling you not to go to school. I'm not telling you not to think about these things. But I'm just saying that, just look at the season that you have in front of you. Ask yourself, like, hey, what is it that I really want to do? And just move forward in that direction. And here's the thing, you're never really going to know what the right move is until you look back. I'll give you an example from my life. At one point, I wanted to be a photographer. That didn't really work out. At one point, I wanted to be a rapper. That didn't really work out. At one point, I wanted to be a skateboarder. Well, technically, I didn't really want to be a skateboarder. I like skateboarders, so I wanted to become a skateboarder. But I wanted to do all of these things. And I had all of these dreams, but I didn't really know what to do. But then I realized, and the point of this talk is that the movement is not the thing that I did. The movement is who I was. So wherever you find yourself, be a person that just adds value to that which you value. You get me?
Yeah.
Be a person that you care for the thing that you say that you care about, right? So again, in simple forms, it doesn't really matter. Just whatever season that you're in, put your heart, put your energy towards that. Because the movement is not what you're doing, the movement is who you are. And don't let your life, again, be defined by what you do, but let what you do be dictated by who you are. Because let me tell you, in life, what you do is definitely going to change. You're going to create all of these plans, and life is going to come around and say, nope, get out of here. What you do is always going to change. But who you are, that only evolves. So that's the only answer I can give.
Thank you. That's more than enough.
That's the only answer I can give. Give him a hand. Give him a hand.
So with running your business and like pursuing your dreams and like doing all these things, right? How do you stay motivated in like kind of self-motivation and like kind of that?
That's a very difficult topic. You guys have really good questions. In my book, I started writing a chapter that I titled called "A Vision That Moves You." Right? A vision that moves you. I think before you start with what you do, you have to start with why you're doing it. Right? You have to assess, why are you doing what you're doing? And it's only in the why of what you do that really you're going to find that motivation. Let me tell you why. There was a study that was done, and that study said that the people who last, like for the first time marathon runners, the people that last in the marathon are always the people who have a cause that they're running for, or somebody else that they're running for. You follow me? So if everything that you're doing is for yourself, good luck, that probably won't last. But if you have, I believe, if you have a vision that's larger than yourself, if you have something that you're working towards, you know you're going to have your setbacks. You know that there's going to be times where you kind of have to shift what you're doing. But you know what you're working towards. I'll give you a great example. Dr. Andrea. She doesn't get up every single day happy and motivated saying, yes, can't wait to do this. I'm happy. I gotta raise money. She doesn't wake up with motivation or all the self-discipline. But she has a vision that moves her. And she has a community of people that are supporting her. Because in life you're going to have those moments where whatever you do will start to crumble and maybe you will start to fall. But if you have a person to your left and a person to your right, they'll never let you fall. So that would be my answer. You're not going to always feel motivated, but ask yourself why you're doing it. Take on a vision that moves you and commit yourself to that. And there's going to be some seasons where it takes longer than expected. But you know that even if you're taking a tiny step, you're still moving forward. Hi, Sophie. Hello.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I was just wondering, because I kind of know you a little bit outside of camp, and I know you're doing a lot of things, creating lots of movement in all areas of your life. And I just wanted to ask you, like, practically, what are some of your priorities and how do you manage them?
Yeah. So the first question is, what is my priority? So Sophie knows me. I do a lot. I work with a lot of organizations. I'm very involved in my church. I have my own. Right now, like I'm currently working in a project in Haiti that we're trying to basically build a school down there, or bring solar powers to a school. And yeah, so you get the point. But I think so. Some practical handles on, how I kind of get everything done as far as my priorities. First, I value my time. That's the number one thing is I value my time. I don't always get it right, but I value my time. And here's what I mean by that. Most of you, all of you have way more time than you think. That's why when I say you don't have to stay where you started, you don't have to stop where you are. There's no better time than now. There's no better person than you. The time is the key component of that. And how you use your time today will determine on what you'll become tomorrow. So for me, Sophie, I would say that's the first thing that I start with is where I put my time. I want to put my time and energy into things that are promoting who I want to be. I want to put my time and energy that's actually going to make me a healthier person in all areas of my life, whether that's physically, mentally, relationally. And so how can you do that? It starts with your bedtime, as cheesy as it sounds. But I was a person that I used to stay up till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Now I'm in bed like 10:30, and I'm up by 5:30, 6 o'clock. So it sounds crazy. I would have said that like literally 7 months ago. But I realized that when I did that, from that morning hour, I have so much time that I didn't even know that I had. And then I get so much more done during the day. So I would say start with your time, and put in place your time doing the things that push you to who you want to be. And spend your time with people who are actually pushing you forward in life. That's good, was good.
Hello, Daniel. With all the success that you have and the things you're doing, how do you still intentionally take time for God and all that? How do you work that into your busy schedule?
Yeah, that's very difficult for me. I think it's constantly reminding yourself on what's important. It's constantly reminding yourself of what you value. So that's why I said what do you value? One of my main values is my relationship with God. When I talk about purpose, I believe that my purpose doesn't come from myself. My purpose is that out of 7 billion people on the planet, I believe that there's a God that created me. And when he created me, he created me with a plan and a purpose. So that's the first thing. So everything that I do, it comes from the fact that the God of the universe, who holds the world in his hands, created me, and he loves me, and he cares about me. So now how do I put time into that? I'm not good at it. But I would, again, it starts with, you know, again, I would say going to sleep early and being intentional with what you said, you know. Everything falls back on intentionality, right? If you're not intentional with your life and what you want to do and your relationship with people, or maybe you're a Christian or whatever, your relationship with God, whatever that looks like, it's intentionality, you know? You want to put energy, again, back into the person that you want to become. And the thing about success, I think success is a funny word because people can define it in many different ways. A lot of people think success is having a high net worth. But again, like I said in the talk, I don't think people really want success. I think people actually really want significance. Success is having a high net worth. Significance is having a high self-worth. And I think there's a lot of people with a lot of money in their bank account, but they don't have a lot of significance in their soul. So for me, no matter what I'm doing in my life, no matter what season I find myself in, I have to constantly remind myself on what's important and what's not. And then I have to constantly align myself with people who are gonna, one, confront me. I have to align myself with people who are, two, gonna comfort me. And I have to align myself with people, three, who are gonna celebrate me. You need those three people who will confront you. You know? Actually, I was talking to her dad, right? I was having a conversation with her dad, and I was telling him about all the things that, you know, I was doing. And he was like, dude, you gotta rest. He just says, I don't care what you're doing. Saturdays, do nothing. And I've been doing that. So you gotta align, you know, again, you gotta align yourself with people who's gonna confront you. You gotta align yourself with people who are gonna comfort you. And you gotta align yourself with people who are gonna celebrate you.
That's good, that's good. Well, I want you guys to note that there's these cards. We already have the dates for 2022. And on the back, I want you to see something that Dennis wrote for our movement. Because he's not just writing one book, he's writing two books at the same time. And I would love in your voice for you to read this. Get the feeling of the movement. Before you do that though, just talk about how your day looks now and how you fit in writing two books and what time your day starts. And then, you know, we'll wrap up with the TLT movement.
Yeah. Also, I just finished up college too, so my day's packed. I go to school at night, but again, I think my day every day starts about 6 practically, right? My day starts about 5:30. My day today started at like 5, but my day practically starts around 5:30, 6 a.m. It sounds crazy, but I guarantee you, if you just shut off your technology, and let me take a couple steps back because I didn't talk about this. So if you want to have success here, you have to have success here. So if you want to have, you know, if you want to achieve something tomorrow, you have to start today. What do I mean by that? So before I get into my day tomorrow, I'm actually preparing for it. So one of the things that I stopped doing is I stopped, you know, around 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I turn off my technology. So if you try to text me, you're not getting a response. I don't see it. I'm not on Instagram at that time. Because again, for me, I'm trying to protect my peace. So I put away my technology around 8, 9, and I just shut off the lights, even if I can't sleep. But then that gets me ready for the next day. Because again, I have a lot of organizations and different things I'm a part of, and one of the things that I do is, you know, in the mornings I go to Starbucks or something, and I go to a space that's outside of my home environment, and I do what's most important. So usually I start with my devotionals, because I believe like what you take in, you actually put back out. So I can't do anything well if I'm not well. I can't do anything healthy if I'm not healthy. So I start with that. Because my life is crazy, my days can look different, but usually I start early, and I'm very intentional with the first couple hours of my day. by 10 o'clock, I don't touch my phone. I was a person that like, I was, and listen, I'm saying this as like a person that's like, I have to consistently work on this. Like, I'm not talking to you as a person who's arrived at all, right? But I'm talking to you a person that has to consistently go back to these habits. Somebody says, you make your habits, then your habits make you, right? So the thing that I do is I look at my habits. And here's the thing, like, you're not always gonna feel like it. But I know that every single day I wake up, I do my devotionals, and I get to work on the most important thing for that day. And then I create space for the rest of the day. So I think that's it practically, that's really what I can give. But in summary of all of that, just be very intentional, right? Decide where do you want to go. Don't be afraid to dream. Decide where do you want to go. Decide who you want to become. And commit your habits to that, right? And over time, you're going to see yourself evolve. So that's that. We aren't the next. We are the now. We aren't the future. We are the present. We're not just serving for a brighter tomorrow. We're leading for a better today. We are TLT. Tomorrow's leaders today.